Coming up on The Report, major updates in two major criminal trials.
Followed by the latest details in the aftermath of the Astroworld devastation.
And LA City Fire gives us a look into how rescue and recovery operations are performed at a South Bay cliff site. All this and more right now. Hello, I'm Chris Adler.
I'm Amanda Mendoza.
And I'm Jorge Flores. Follow us on Twitter at The Report CSUF, or on our Titan TV Instagram, Titan TV CSUF, to keep in touch with us and view our new content.
Day 3 of jury deliberations are underway in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where 18-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse stands trial for shooting 2 men and injuring 1 other. During a protest riot of the police shooting of Jacob Blake last summer, Rittenhouse fatally shot 26-year-old Anthony Huber, 36-year-old Joseph Rosenbaum, and shot and injured now 27-year-old Gage Grosskreutz. Blake was paralyzed after being shot 7 times in the back when police responded to a domestic dispute involving the black male, where he was confirmed to have been holding a knife. Blake reportedly tried to get back into his SUV, where his children were in the back seat. Kenosha police officer Rustin Shensky allegedly opened fire, fearing that Blake would drive off and use his children as hostages. Rittenhouse, who joined local militia to protect businesses from riots and looting in the wake of the Blake shooting, armed himself with an AR-15 style rifle. The shooting of Jacob Blake was just 3 months after the killing of George Floyd by former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. Rittenhouse claims the men were attacking him and that he shot them in self-defense. Rittenhouse is facing 5 charges: 1 count of first-degree reckless homicide, use of a dangerous weapon, 2 counts of first-degree recklessly endangering safety, use of a dangerous weapon, 1 count of first-degree intentional homicide, use of a dangerous weapon, and 1 count of attempted first-degree intentional homicide. First-degree intentional homicide carries a sentence of life in prison. So, you guys, there's so much going on in this case, and the trial itself has been kind of a circus. And I've been following the trial, and what I've seen is it seems that the Judge Schroeder has kind of some sympathy for Rittenhouse. And my big issue with this is that Rittenhouse was 17 at the time. He's now 18. His mother drove him from his town in Illinois to Wisconsin, let her 17-year-old son get out of the vehicle with an assault rifle to play vigilante. And honestly, in what world am I ever going to let my children go and put themselves in a position like that? So I feel like there needs to be some accountability on the mother's side, and I'm not excusing Kyle's actions. There definitely needs to be some punishment. I don't think life in prison is the proper punishment. This is a 17-year-old child, and his brain has not developed properly. He's making terrible decisions, and unfortunately, his mother wasn't there to stop him.
Totally. Well, at least what I can say right now is that I completely agree with you, because as a mother, you are not doing that to your child. I mean, you're not putting him in danger. The thing is that while he was in these protests, there's a moment in which he kind of finishes his participation. He goes away, and then the police tells him, to him and to other guys, stop, don't come back, this is gonna get worse. But he returned, and then the shooting started.
Yes.
So for sure, in my opinion, yes, we need consequences. This was murder. However, it's very important to understand the time and place. I mean, we were just talking that it was very recently after George Floyd's death. So his intentions, I don't think he was just a supporter of Blue Lives Matter, but he was portraying more racism where there was already a big problem. So in my opinion, I think this was unnecessary, and we need those consequences in place.
I agree, Jorge. What I think it's interesting is that, especially in the wake of the Black Lives Matter protest, his first plan of action is to protect businesses, not think about how Black people are disenfranchised in society, but to protect businesses. And plus, in regards to what you said, Crystal, I think his mom does share some responsibility, but at the same time, I don't feel any sympathy for Rittenhouse, because sure, 17-year-olds make mistakes. They might do something inappropriate, and while I would never condone this, they might shoplift, which they will regret later in life, or something that has consequences, of course. But killing isn't some kind of thing that any ordinary 17-year-old does, right? I think he had some racism behind his actions, and I think he needs to be held responsible for however many years that is, because that's not something that should just be a slap on the wrist.
No, and it can't be, because we cannot allow children in America to carry assault rifles and play vigilante, play police officer. Like, what are you doing? What in your mind makes you think that you can get away with this? If that was a young black male, he would have been arrested immediately. Kyle Rittenhouse was walking down the street after he killed 2 people, his hands up, his rifle slinging across his chest, his hands up, and police are driving by saying, oh, we appreciate what you're doing, man. Do you need water? Tell me, in what world would a young black man get away with something like that? If that was a black boy, he would have been dead in the street if that was the case. So there definitely has to be consequences here. Absolutely. I don't know why the mother isn't being held accountable for any of this, but I feel like she should be made an example of, because any parent that is behind their child and saying, oh yeah, it's okay, you can go off and do that, they have to be held accountable. Kyle, what he did was wrong. He should have never been there in the first place. He was completely out of his element. But as his mother had legal guardianship over him at the time it happened, and so she should be held responsible. She drove her son over there and let him get out of the car. That she needs to be held accountable. But there definitely has to be some kind of repercussion, and I hope he does serve a heavy amount of time for what he did.
Totally. Now, what you mentioned was really important. Like, we need to make some memory. I mean, this wasn't like a while ago. So what I hope from the jury and from the judge is that they should be making justice today, because what this happened and what we call it, that's white supremacy.
Yep.
And it's not permissible anymore.
Yep.
It shouldn't be like that. So for sure, we need those actions taken into place today. That's what we need, justice in our country. Well, as jurors decide the fate of 18-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse in Wisconsin, 12 other jurors will decide the fate of the defendants who stand trial in Georgia for killing then 25-year-old Ahmuad Arberry, an unarmed black man. Greg McMichael, his son Travis McMichael, and William Roddy Bryan have pleaded not guilty to charges of murder, aggravated assault, and false imprisonment for chasing Arbery down the street, pointing a gun at him and shooting him 3 times. With the state resting their case Tuesday, they have now begun their cross-examination of the defendants in this case. Travis McMichael shocked jurors taking the stand in his own defense yesterday, justifying shooting Arbery, saying, quote, "This was a life or death situation." McMichael says his father came to him frantic after allegedly seeing Arbery walking outside of an empty home construction site. According to police, despite the McMichael suspicious, Arbery is seen walking through the construction site more than once, but is never seen taking anything. Travis McMichael claims Arbery looked, quote, angry, but still confronted him to do a citizen's arrest, which was allowed by state law in Georgia at the time. Prosecutors say he should have known better as a trained member of the Coast Guard, and also point out that McMichael never confronted or shot any white people who were also seen at the same residential construction site. Today, the presiding judge will decide if the jurors are allowed to hear that Travis McMichael allegedly used a racial slur referring to deceased Ahmaud Arberry. Once again, very controversial topic, and 2 things that we need to take into place is that he was an unarmed black man. We have a difference between white and black men, and we see, as always, that the black man is always the one guilty, and it's always the one who tries to put terror into society. What are your opinions on this case?
Well, personally, I think what this case and what Rittenhouse's case has in common is that these are people with a lot of hate and bitterness in their heart who want to pretend like they're playing hero, but in reality, they're using it as a way to show off their racism. And so this whole case is so suspicious. So apparently, the McMichaels, they say they saw a man who might have been the same criminal who broke into their neighbor's home during construction and might have had the same haircut and decided they need to use a rifle. To me, it just sounds like racial profiling. And also what's very interesting during the case is that prosecutor Linda Dunkowski asked Travis McMichael if in the military he learned that, quote, "you can't force people to speak to you," end quote, and he said yes. And also she pointed out how in reality, McMichael didn't just intend to arrest him as they claimed earlier, because he didn't mention that was his intent a single time throughout the trial until his attorney asked him a leading question. So honestly, even though they claim that, oh, we just want to arrest him or something, I don't think that's the case. I think it's just simple. It was racial profiling, and they want to pretend like they were the heroes in terms of their racist rhetoric. Totally. What are your thoughts, Crystal?
Totally. It's amazing. It's amazing. 3 white people chasing after an unarmed black man and shooting him. Like you said, Amanda, he said it was a life or death situation. Well, you put yourself out there and you go after somebody with a gun. Of course, it's a life or death situation. But for who? For you or for Ahmaud Arberry? Because let's be real. That quote should actually be something coming from Ahmaud Arbery's mouth, not his. They have to be made an example of. Again, here we are. White people chasing after black people, shooting them. When is it going to stop? When is it enough? They have to be made an example of. Because if they don't, if they in some crazy way get acquitted for this, I'm telling you, what it will be telling America is that, oh, it's absolutely okay for you to go out and shoot someone because you think that you're gonna be the judge and jury for this. And executioner. Yeah. So it's just so upsetting that we've allowed this for so long and it's still happening. I mean, look, we have 2 trials right now that are race related here. 2 trials going on. They're deliberating as we speak in the Rittenhouse trial. And although he didn't shoot black people per se, he was on the other side. He was not for the Black Lives Matter protests. And people are saying, well, when rioters go out there and they're destroying property, they deserve it. No, when you back a race like the black race into a corner for so long, they're going to lash out. Because talking and civil protests it got nowhere. So, at some point, yeah, I get it. It's not right, but I get it. What else can they do? But they have to get loud. So I really hope, and it seems that this judge who's presiding over this case, I've been following the case, and Reverend Al Sharpton was there, and the defense tried to get him and other black reverends in the courtroom banned from being in the courtroom because they said it had some kind of sway on the prosecution and that it would sway the jurors, and but the judge, luckily, the judge in Georgia told him, frankly, I'm really disappointed in what you're saying, and it's reprehensible what you just said, trying to get the black reverends kicked out of the court.
Yeah. Exactly, Crystal. And the thing is that if black people, the black community decides to speak up, we're disenfranchised. We decide to stay quiet, we're disenfranchised. So no matter what we do to take some kind of action, people are going to be angry at us. Or as we see in these cases, people are going to want to shoot us, kill us, and that's just absolutely terrifying and devastating. So hopefully these people get the consequences that they deserve. It makes me so angry hearing this. As the country seeks justice in these 2 criminal trials, singers and performers Travis Scott and Drake stand trial of their own in the wake of the Astroworld chaos. Drake and Travis Scott have been named in a $750 million lawsuit on behalf of 125 victims who attended the Houston, Texas Music Festival, with the death count reaching a total of 10 people, including 9-year-old Ezra Blount, who was trampled on and crushed after falling from his father's shoulders when a crowd surge put pressure on Ezra's father's chest, causing him to pass out and drop Ezra into the crowd. Ezra was taken to the Texas Children's Hospital as a John Doe as he was separated from his father. The 9-year-old suffered cardiac arrest, resulting in a damaged heart, as well as liver and lung damage and swelling of the brain. Ezra's grandfather, Bernard Blount, told CNN his grandson was there to, quote, see his favorite artists. Family attorney Ben Crump said he is standing in solidarity with Ezra's family, who says is, quote, grieving the incomprehensible loss of their precious young son. The lawsuit alleges that 21-year-old Axel Acosta, who died from injuries sustained after collapsing at the concert, was trampled, stating, quote, as he lay there under a mass of humanity, dying, the music played on and streamed on for almost 40 minutes. Crump says he has filed a lawsuit on behalf of 90 people who claim to be suffering mentally, physically, and psychologically. Scott has been criticized by the public for carrying on with the show and going to a Dave & Buster's after the concert chaos. Scott posted social media saying he was never told by security that anybody was killed. Scott vowed to cover funeral costs for all the victims, and after he learned what happened, releasing a statement via Twitter saying, quote, I am absolutely devastated by what took place last night. My prayers go out to all the families and all those impacted by what happened at Astroworld Festival. Houston PD has my full support as I continue to look into the tragic loss of life. I am committed to working together with the Houston community to heal and support the families in need. End quote. Wow. So personally, I do think that Travis Scott should take some responsibility because look, celebrities like SZA, Adele, Harry Styles, etc. have stopped their concerts for a while to ensure the safety of their fans. And when Travis said he wasn't told by security, he didn't mention so far in that quote that he didn't see what was going on, because I've seen some TikToks where you could see him standing over while he's performing over the bodies while they're being taken away. And so I think to a certain degree he knew. I also saw some other videos, including a concert goer going up to the people behind the scenes and saying that there are people who are injured, there are people who are being hurt during this concert. So how would this have not been communicated to Travis, whether he saw it or heard it backstage? So to a certain degree, I think he's responsible. There's no way you could not see the ambulance or something in that crowd. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say that this whole concert was a devastation.
Yes.
Was a disaster. Like, I'm really sorry for all the people that they attended, because even like the paramedics, they don't even know what to do in that situation. And you can see those actions in the videos online. You see how they're just looking at the person who is lying down and they don't even know what to do. While even other attendees, they're trying to do CPR, trying to help the people who they were laying down. And it really impacts me, just what we were talking about. Having someone laying down, dying while music is being played and streamed by an artist, and even we see in those videos how he's still singing and singing like nothing was happening. I mean, this is just so bad. And probably, in my opinion, this could be also the end of his popularity and career, because this is and makes him also morally guilty.
Actually, apparently, his albums actually increase in listening after this concert. So honestly, besides his charges of $750 million, I don't really know if he's going to suffer consequences after this, or at least consequences to the extent of what needs to be done, since more people are now listening to his albums. So what are your thoughts, Crystal?
I think you both make a very good point. I think that, first of all, Travis did see what happened, even if it was momentarily. There's a moment where he's singing and he stops the performance because he sees somebody is passed out. And he says, whoa, stop the concert. Someone's passed out. All right, let's get in and get him. And as he's directing the people to come and pick up the person whose body is on the ground, he's still kind of humming, like humming into the beat and stuff. At that point, he should have stopped the concert. Yeah. But Travis Scott continued, and he continued the concert, and like the report said, for 40 more minutes. And at that time, people were dying. A 9-year-old was being crushed. I can't even conceive of it. That's just a little bit older than my older son. And the father, he was there, and maybe a 9-year-old shouldn't have been at a concert like that, but the father thought he was taking him to go see his favorite artist. I can't even imagine the guilt that the father has. And people have likened this disaster to hell. It was loud, it was crowded. And you brought up a good point, Amanda. There's a video of a concert goer, going up and desperately pleading with the cameraman to stop the concert. Somebody's dead, stop the concert. And 2 people went up there, and to no avail, nobody stopped it. So this lawsuit is just the beginning of many, and maybe Travis Scott is getting a little bit of popularity because his name is in the press, but I think long term, he's done after this because it's unforgivable. I mean, we're talking 10 people, a 9-year-old, most of them, all of them, in their 20s and younger. So I think that this is truly the end of it for him.
Exactly, and for us, I mean, we need to learn from this. I mean, for me, it's impossible to conceive that we are now in the 2021 and we cannot still organize a good public event.
And here's another point. We are in the middle of we're just coming out of a pandemic.
Exactly.
So why?
Exactly.
My first thought when I heard this, when my sister told me in the news, I said, why are we allowing the capacity to be that great? So Travis Scott has a responsibility. The labels have a responsibility. The staff and security at the concert have the responsibility. There are a lot of people here that are going to be answering. Yeah. This is not cut and dried. This is going to be a very convoluted case. and it's going to be drawn out, but as it should be. There's a lot of people who will be named in these lawsuits, guaranteed.
Deplorable, the whole situation. And Axel Acosta Villa, 21, Danish Beige, 27, Ezra Blount, 9, Madison Dobisky, 23, Joan Hilgert, 14, Jacob Jornek, 20, Frank Patino, 21, Rodolfo Pena, 23, Brianna Rodriguez, 16, and Barty Shanani, 22, the 10 victims who died from attending the Astroworld Festival. Our hearts and thoughts are all with all those who have been affected by this unimaginable loss. As many are grieving in Houston, a family is grieving in Los Angeles after a father is gunned down with his wife and children watching. James Vargas, a 30-year-old father of 2, was suddenly confronted at a gunpoint while he was ordering food with his family in South LA. The shooting happened on the corner of East 92nd Street late Saturday night, where witnesses say 2 Hispanic males pulled a gun on Vargas and asked him, quote, "Where are you from?" a common term used among gang members. And before giving Vargas a chance to answer, he was shot and killed. Vargas' family says that the loving father had no gang affiliation. Witnesses say 2 Hispanic men fled. A green Tahoe. The LAPD is urging anyone who knows anything about this case to contact the LAPD Homicide Division. The Vargas family has set up a GoFundMe account to pay for funeral expenses. If you would like to contribute, you can find the GoFundMe account at the link below. Again, so it's about insecurity, it's about race, it's about violence. What I cannot understand is that in front of his children and wife, and he was just ordering food. I cannot conceive this.
Wow.
What is he supposed to mean to us?
There's no words. And his brother went on, and his sister-in-law were on the news saying he was not a gang member. He was a loving father. He was not a confrontational person. And they showed pictures of him with his kids that night, and you can tell how much he lived for his children. He loved his wife. And it's just devastating. I mean, we can't even go and order tacos without being gunned down? What?
Exactly.
What is, it's unbelievable.
This shows the extent of gang violence and how it could really threaten anyone, because what's wrong with like ordering some food for your family, right? This is an absolute tragedy, and I'm so sorry to Vargas's family. I can't imagine just going out, doing something so innocent, so normal, and then just being gunned down without even having a chance to respond.
Yeah, and in a personal view, I'm just worried about our safety nowadays. It means in our country, we believe in security, and we believe that we should be always supported by the police departments. But now, imagine having your family trying to go someplace, now you can't, or at least that makes you wonder that at least I cannot go outside of my place after 9 p.m. because who knows? That's impossible to think about.
And we can't speculate. We don't know for certain that it was a gang affiliate. It could have been some bozos just pulling on a gun on somebody, because people do crazy things. But in the gang community, asking where you're from, is a common term. But in a lot of the gangs in LA, to show what you're made of, you are asked to kill somebody. And my theory is that it possibly was someone being inducted into the gang, and they had to show what they could do. And that meant taking a life regardless. And they had no regard for him and no regard for his children. And I hope that family gets the justice they deserve. And in other local news, the body of a woman was found at the base of the Point Fermin Cliffs in San Pedro on November 6th, making this the 7th death at the cliff site this year. The Point Fermin Cliffs are near a popular tourist attraction known as the Sunken City, homes in ruins from a 1929 landslide. The lure to these cliffs are the views of the Pacific from the Palos Verdes Peninsula, which are both beautiful and deadly. The cliff drop is over 100 feet with a jagged shoreline below. I got an opportunity to speak with Captain 2 Eric Scott, Public Information Officer for the Los Angeles City Fire Department, who shared with the report what the efforts are like to recover bodies from these watery grave sites. Because of the dangerous nature of the unsteady ground off the cliffs, first responders must be methodical with the rescue and recovery of a body. This could mean a ground rescue or helicopter rescue. Here's PIO Eric Scott with more on the rescue process.
Well, a helicopter hoist is a dangerous operation, but it's calculated. And we take an abundance of comprehensive checks to ensure that all the members involved in that operation are safely secured, that the crew is correctly connected or lashed into the helicopter cabin. Simultaneously, the pilot in the front is going to do a very comprehensive checklist. They're going to gain clearance from air traffic control. And then once they're up in the air, we move very fast, about 150 miles per hour. So we could get to most parts of the city within 5 minutes. But then once we're on scene, we need to really see where that victim is and start to develop a rescue plan. Typically, that'll involve first taking one of our firefighter paramedics and lowering them to the ground. They're going to bring some of their initial medical gear with them. They're going to make contact with the patient, do an assessment, determine if they need additional personnel on the ground or not, and they coordinate all this over the radio. Then ultimately, we package the patient safely. We hoist them back up into the helicopter, and then we could really get to most large hospitals and trauma centers within 3 to 5 minutes, easy. We'll land on the helipad, we'll transfer care, and then make ourselves available for the next emergency.
The entire process is undoubtedly dangerous, but LA City Fire says that the risk is calculated and just part of their public duty.
Yes, there's a danger involved, but as previously mentioned, it's a calculated risk, and we're here to serve the public. One of the biggest tips that we're going to tell people to do, whether they're out hiking or sightseeing, is to stay on the designated trail. The biggest problems we see is when people start to get off of those trails, but then do the other obvious things, avoid being alone in remote areas, or at least tell other people where you're going. Drink plenty of water, stay hydrated, carry high energy snacks, have a charged cell phone, take some first aid supplies if possible, and simply follow posted instructions.
So I know you guys are aware that I've been covering the Point Fermin Cliffs since the beginning of the year. At the time, we didn't have 7 deaths. It was actually one of the first deaths in February. In the beginning of the year, and it's very sad, and it's very personal to me. I lived in San Pedro for some time. I went to San Pedro High for 2 years, but even if I didn't, covering this story and learning about all of the victims, and it's unnecessary, these victims who have fallen. And when I was doing my story, I realized, and all of, in visiting there, I could just look over the cliff and there's a trail that is pretty much a man-made trail from people walking over the wall, and people can literally just fall off the cliff. We could go there at midnight, Jorge, and we could just walk off the cliff. And that's a problem because, the city, San Pedro, I talked to a lot of the residents, they say there's really not much the city can do, that it would take away the beauty from everyone else if they put all these walls up and really. And they're saying if someone wants to kill themselves, they're going to just kill themselves because it is a popular suicide spot. But let's say they're not. Yes, maybe we can't stop all of the deaths. And if somebody wants to take their life, if they can't jump off the cliff, they'll find somewhere else to jump off of. But what about the people who are just sightseeing and climbing over and taking pictures? And one woman fell trying to take a selfie, which is obviously not the smartest thing to do, but are we going to we're going to keep letting people fall off of the cliffs? Or are we going to just stand by and let another person walk off the cliffs? It's a problem, and there's not a cut and dry answer or solution to this. I did attend the San Pedro Coastal Council meeting, and I brought this up. I've been trying to get in touch with the LA City Council member, Joe Buscaino, who is part of the 15th District. He is head of the San Pedro Department. No response. So Joe Buscaino, expect a visit from me because I will be coming to speak with you about this. But it's sad because not much is being done about it. And I can almost guarantee that before this year is over, we will find another body at the base of the cliffs. So
incredible. And I just have one argument. Is it beauty versus deaths? That's it. For me, it's common sense. The city, our elected officials, they should be taking action on this, having more protection, because like you just told us, suicide spots. Maybe this also brings people that they want to do bad things to their people. They can just push people away. A lot of deaths that are coming up. There's an increase of cases. This should be something very simple to understand. And I don't get why, whether it's the neighborhood in San Pedro or whether it's just the elected officials that they don't want to take action on it. This is very simple for me. I don't get it. We should need some action from our elected officials. It's been a while since we need this. And if not, like you mentioned, probably another case could happen by the end of this year.
And I agree. I think what's important here is ensuring that people are able to pay attention to the potential danger of the situation. So I think maybe they should put some kind of gate around it, or even just a simple sign. I know people are afraid of potentially ruining the beauty, like you guys mentioned, but like you said, Jorge, it's either, potentially dying or preserving the beauty. And plus, I think awareness is key, and not everyone who visits this place may be aware of the potential harm that could possibly happen. So I think that's really something important that we should look at. And I agree, Crystal, if they don't take more action, I think there's potential that there could be more deaths that happen in this area.
Well, it's a wonder how they haven't been sued, because if my child fell off the cliff, I would definitely be suing the city. And when I was doing a news package at the cliffs, I was there and I was just looking, and it was sad. I saw there were young children, there were junior high children on the other side of the wall, and in a split second they could have fallen. And once you fall, it's over. You're done. You're dead. You're not going to survive that fall. It's over 100 feet. Some areas are even 200-foot drops, and then there's jagged rocks at the bottom, so you don't survive. And no, people should be using common sense, but sometimes we have to protect people from themselves, unfortunately. And the city, this is nothing new. This has been going on for decades, okay? We're talking 1920s, people have been committing suicide. The numbers are off the charts. But this year alone, 7 bodies confirmed. 7. So I just feel it's very upsetting. It's very upsetting. But I won't stand down. I'm going to continue to pursue this because somebody has to. They have to, and people in the public are saying, what about cameras? What about putting up nets where they'll catch them halfway down, or walls? I don't know exactly what the effort or what the solution is, but we have to start talking about it at least to come to some kind of solution.
Totally.
And one of the victims who fell from the cliffs was 15-year-old Anderson Bard of San Pedro, who fell from the cliffs 7 years ago, October 27th. Anderson fell from the cliffs accidentally after he left his school's campus and visited the cliff site. David Bard, Anderson's father, says he and his wife Veronica were devastated, and no matter who is to blame, nothing will bring their son back. Anderson's parents started a scholarship in Anderson's memory offered to San Pedro High students showing interest in natural sciences, which Anderson loved. Mr. and Mrs. Bard, our hearts go out to you, as a loss of a child is an incomparable one. If you would like to contribute to the Anderson Dale Bard Education Fund, you can visit the link below.
In more California news, Amazon reached a settlement with California's Attorney General Rob Bonta Monday after claims the company concealed COVID cases from their warehouse workers. According to the agreement, Amazon must notify workers within 1 day of any new COVID cases and must provide the exact number of active COVID cases within the workplace. Under the agreement that still needs court approval, Amazon will also put $500,000 toward additional enforcement of California protection laws and will notify local health agencies within 48 hours of new COVID cases. Amazon spokesperson Barbara Great said, quote, "We're glad to have this resolved," and that the AG found no substantial issues within the safety measures in our buildings, end quote. In January, California enacted Assembly Bill 685, or the Right to Know Act, which enacts stricter COVID regulations in the workplace. Attorney General Bonta said Amazon inadequately notified warehouse workers and COVID cases, adding that the company often left them in the dark and, quote, unable to effectively track the virus, end quote. So honestly, I think Amazon knew what they were doing. But look, they're a multi-billion-dollar company, and essentially the company's like one big machine, right? They just need workers to do their job so that way they can just earn money. So personally, I think $500,000 is just a slap on the wrist. It's not really going to do anything. And while I do think that I appreciate that they decided to fix these measures, at the same time, I'm not surprised that any of this is happening. I think they're completely aware of the situation.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and I got some friends working at Amazon warehouse here in Orange County, and it's more than only this situation of COVID, but the work environment. They say that they lack that humanization towards the employees because they're working so hard for so many hours every single day. So I believe, and I'm confident, they at least need some notification when it comes about the new active COVID cases. And like you mentioned, that was just like a slap in the wrist. I don't think that's gonna really move into some kind of good direction of the company or the employees. I mean, I like that it was like a baby step trying to help the pandemic, but we really need more changes. At least this was, like I mentioned, just a baby step. We're kind of going into the right direction.
Yeah, and good on the Attorney General for bringing this up, and good on California for holding them accountable, because 500, let's face it, 500,000 is a drop in the bucket for Amazon. But I really don't, it's not necessarily about the money, but it's also about holding them accountable and bringing this to light. And now hopefully other businesses will see what happened, because other businesses probably cannot afford to have any kind of fines like that, and significant fines. And Amazon workers work so hard. They work so hard. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but most of my shopping is done on Amazon, and I'm so grateful for the delivery drivers and all of the workers in the warehouse, because they make life easier for all of us, and they deserve that. So I'm glad that someone's being a voice for them.
Yeah.
So hopefully these workers will feel a little more comfortable and a little safer while working at Amazon. But moving on to our personal lives, what are you guys doing for Thanksgiving?
Cooking, which is going to be a disaster. Last year, the turkey burned in the oven, and it was like, and it took a year for it to stop burning what was left at the bottom of the oven. And oh my gosh, a disaster. But my sister is going to help me, so this year we will actually have a turkey to eat after. I am not a cook. I'm not a cook. Nope, that's not my thing. But yeah. So what are you gonna do?
I mean, I'm glad that we're having this break, because when it comes about us students, we need some break from school, you know? We're gonna go to see our families, being thankful for the things that we have under these conditions that we're trying to transition after the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm glad up to this moment.
And I'm really excited too. Actually, my sister's coming in from Boston, and we don't get to see her all the time.
Look at that.
Right? So we're gonna have like one big family dinner, and I'm just really happy to have her back, because I have two older sisters. One of them includes my sister Taylor, who's coming from Boston, like I mentioned. But it's gonna be nice to have like the Mendoza trio again. So.
I love that. That's the best.
I'm so happy for you. I know,
That's
there's nothing like sisters, that's for sure.
And with that, that's all the time we have today on The Report. Have a safe week, everyone, and stay tuned for more news, views, and info. I'm Amanda Mendoza.
I'm Jorge Flores.
And I'm Chris Adler. Thanks for being with us. Have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone.